DJ PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's been a great show so far. PK is on the Brian Windhorse career path. We're going to miss you, big guy. We don't have to, though. We got the technology now. You can do it all.
Well, they're going to have to come at me with a big offer. I'm going to have to get an exclusive individual Barton Hills membership. Have you looked it up yet?
The Whittingham beat is going to take PK back to Michigan. I did send a text right away. Got shot down. But maybe that was just to open the way for you. That could be what it was. I said, I think we need to be at that Oklahoma game. I think we need to be at spring football. I got back. No, period. That was it. Short answer. 2 letters. one small piece of punctuation. No, period.
Well, maybe. We'll see what happens.
Okay. Work it. Windhorse famously rode his connections with LeBron to a network career. This could be it, man. And people are saying you're late in your career. Well, Kyle's late in his career. Who cares? All the way to the top, PK. Let's go.
No, I don't have a career. I'm just lucky to show up each day. I got a job. I'm a junk man. I continue to defy the odds. So, we'll wish Kyle well. We'll follow him from a distance and see what happens. Friendships, I don't think change. If they're real friendships, they don't really change that much over time.
No, that's why we always talk about somebody you haven't seen since high school or college, and you pick up right where you left off. That's why that expression exists.
He's going to have to find some time for the Eagles at the Sphere in Vegas, though. He's not getting out of that one.
He's not going to do this forever.
He's going to have to find some time here soon. We'll just leave it at that.
DJ PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We're joined now by Steve Cleveland, former BYU basketball coach. Steve, good morning.
Good morning, fellas.
Steve, we don't usually talk a lot of football with you, but coaching doesn't change that much from sport to sport. So I think we have a couple of questions after everything we've seen happen with Kyle Whittingham. When you've been one place a long time, like you were at BYU, and then you pick up and move to Fresno State, new president, new AD, new fan base, no boosters, nothing you've done really matters. They're more worried about the storyline of their team. They're not so much worried about that. Even though you were going home and Kyle is not going home to Michigan, was there a little bit of culture shock having to start over at that point in your career?
I think culture shock is a pretty good way to put it, to be honest with you. I mean, I knew kind of what I was getting into, and I think we always feel like hope springs eternal, and we can fix this, we can fix that. It was a challenging time in my life in terms of coaching and just all the issues around our program. I think Kyle's in a situation which is significantly different in that, he's gone to a blue chip program in Michigan, and I couldn't be happier for the guy. I mean, he was so committed to Utah. He ends up stepping away. I don't know what his intentions were when he stepped away, but stepping into that Michigan job has to be a thrill of a lifetime for him and his family and everybody involved. And I'm excited to watch him play.
When you took over at BYU, I was a beat writer at the time, and everybody knew the program literally was in the worst shape that it had ever been. And so if you did anything that had any modicum of success that first year, it would be considered a successful year, which is exactly what you did, being able to, if I remember correctly, get to it was a bloated whack, and you had to qualify to get to the conference tournament, and you got all that there. Well, now with Kyle going to Michigan in a very real way, I think it amps up the pressure on a guy like Morgan Scalley, who's one of the better human beings that I've ever been around. But now, man, the spotlight was always going to be intense. Now, with Kyle still coaching, we're going to have at least a look and see what Michigan's doing. How do you handle pressure? Because I can recall talking to you multiple times. The pressure that you felt to win was enormous. And now you were trying to build a program. Now you got somebody, if they win their bowl game, which we expect they will have 11 wins, be 11-2, and expect to continue that. That's a high standard. Plus, in a figurative way, with Whittingham looking over his shoulder from Michigan.
Yeah, I'm sure, first of all, these guys are really good friends. They've worked together. They've been around each other for a long time. There's pressure that comes. I mean, obviously with Kyle, it's a huge – it's a huge cue. I mean, going to Michigan, coaching there, I think that Kyle will have to transition and he'll have to adjust. And I was just looking at some of the player in the transfer portal things that immediately jump out when a coach leaves and a coach takes a new job. And I suspect that there'll be some of those Utah guys that may be at Michigan here in the next week or two or a month. But it is challenging. And I think that for Kyle, he's prepared. He's done everything at Utah that he could do. And I think with Coach Scally, yes, there will be some adjustments. But he spent a long time with Kyle. And they had a system, and I'm sure he'll tweak some things, and there'll be some different approaches to how he's going to do it versus when Kyle was there. But for the most part, Utah is on pretty solid ground. Now, what ends up happening is, I'm looking at 5 guys at Utah that may just hit the transfer portal and be at Michigan in a week or two. And so, you're talking about Daly and Danner and Ficklin and Buchanan and John Hall. These are all 5 or 6 guys that have to make decisions. Do I go into the portal? Do I follow coach? Does Michigan want me? So there are a lot of unanswered questions, but I suspect that there'll be a few people from Utah that might join Kyle. And I don't know a lot about Michigan's program other than they're a blue blood program. They've been very successful over the years. And I can't imagine Kyle not embracing this and taking it to a level that maybe they've never been to. Who knows what will happen? But I know in the transition when you take over jobs, and you have a transfer portal and you have situations where people are coming and going, and then you have other issues in terms of recruiting new athletes and guys that you have recruited, maybe that are freshmen or that have been committed, and then all of a sudden changes are made. So there's a lot of turbulence right now at Michigan as well as at Utah, but maybe more so at Utah. But Coach Scally is awesome, and I've known him and watched him. I'm excited for him. There'll be adjustments, and if Kyle ends up taking 4 or 5 of the better players from Utah, it'll make his job even more difficult. But I have trust and faith in that guy, man. I've been around him. I've watched him. I'm happy for him and his family.
I think Morgan should go get some of the last cuts from NFL training camps. That'd be my suggestion. Seems to be working in college basketball. Can you believe that guys who played in the G League and guys who've been drafted or guys who are in Europe are joining teams mid-season? Go get yourself a pro. What are you recruiting high school kids for? Yeah,
I mean, that culture and that environment has really changed. And you'd be foolish not to. You got to look at the portal. You got to look at transfers. You got to look at all of these things. And I don't know who's going to stay on the Utah staff and who's coming and who's going. But I suspect that Coach Scally, as a football coach or even in a basketball program, teams change. You can change things really quickly with the transfer portal and having opportunities to kind of poach a player here, poach a player there, and change things in your program. And I think when you start looking at basketball and I see what's happening there in the Big 12 and watching what's happened at BYU and the rebuilding job that's going on at Utah. Everybody is having a different experience, and right now it feels really good to be part of the BYU football program or part of the BYU basketball team. Things are there, whereas at Utah there's some change, and there's going to be rebuilding, and they're going to have to be working the portal and recruiting, and the Utah job situation is going to be much more difficult than what we've seen in BYU and how they've made their adjustments and made the transfer portal work for them, as well as really tapping into it's an international sport, and it's more so for basketball maybe than football, obviously. But between the portal and international recruits and finding guys that are third-year guys that maybe basketball that, have been at, wherever. They were at Weber State, and all of a sudden this guy has a chance to maybe jump into a program because there was a need there. So there is a lot of change going on. It's going to be fun to watch. I'm excited about seeing where Coach Scally goes and what he does and how he can get that football program, maintain it, and deal with transfer portal issues and those kinds of things. And I love what I'm seeing in terms of basketball, in terms of BYU and how they're using the portal and how they're bringing international players in. They're building that thing for the long-term success.
I don't know if you saw that Baylor is getting a guy who was actually drafted, and he's on their roster now. And Baylor's coach Drew saying, "Well, I mean, there are no rules, and so we find a way." And BYU adds a kid who did some G League stuff. So they're assumed professionals. Tom Izzo, I don't know if you heard that, but he went off on that, and he's a statesman now of the game.
Oh yeah,
right? He has such credentials and has the authority and the credibility to speak on these things. And so it seems like from the college basketball perspective, there are literally no rules. You can get guys who have been drafted. It used to be, you put your name in, that's it, you're done. Well, now none of that matters. And you're getting and we didn't really, and they did it to a degree with the European guys, and we weren't really sure how that played out, but we trusted the NCAA. But now when we see guys being drafted into the NBA and then going back to college, it seems crazy. And Izzo speaking out against that. And, you're not that much older than what Tom Izzo is, obviously. So there's a connection there. And it seems like if he's worried about it, what is the future of this game regarding guys who are being professionally paid and then still being able to come back to college?
Yeah. You know what? I have tried to wrap my head around this whole thing. And at times it just feels like everything's out of control, and there's so much change and, in terms of what's happening from one school to another, and whether it's, increased scholarship money or, whatever the finances are, here locally, we know that you have two basketball programs where at Utah we're rebuilding and changing, and it's a hard thing to go through, but it's not as hard as it would have been 5 or 10 years ago when you can get to a transfer portal, when you can get to Europe, when you can get, the world is your playground in terms of sport. And so you can fix programs, you can rebuild programs quicker than when you had to just go through the process of recruiting high school kids or recruiting JUCO kids and players and getting those guys in. It's much easier to change the environment of a program now than it's ever been because of the portal, because of money, significant money that is being used to lure players to come and transfer and come be a part of our program. And we don't have the statistics and things now, but it'll be interesting 5 years from now or 10 years from now to go back and look and just see what trended here, what happened here, and how has this played out, and what changes are being made. Right now we're in the midst of a hurricane, and everything is going every which way. And it's kind of fun to watch from the outside. I mean, it's if you're a college basketball fan, there's a lot of change. I think one of the things about BYU right now is that obviously, with Devonsa and Saunders and Wright, Kennard Davis, you got guys here that, except for Richie, were not a part of the program. And yet, obviously, that staff has done a wonderful job finding players locally, internationally, transfers in every which way. G League, I don't think it's called the G League anymore, but we're recruiting young men from Europe and bringing them over who've been being paid And I don't think the being paid thing it should be much of an issue anymore. Everybody's getting paid. And that's the rules, and that's how it plays out. And because of that, we're going to see a lot of change and a lot of transfers and a lot of different scenarios in terms of building a program and sustaining a program. And I used to think, in my lifetime as a coach, I wanted everything to be sustainable. I had control. We had control as a staff. We knew what kind of players we were looking for. And now the sustainability has a whole different look. And that teams can change from one year to the next, even in season change transfers. So we'll have to keep a close eye on it. I think here locally we're fortunate to have, the NBA presence here. We're fortunate to have Utah and BYU and all the other local colleges, Weber State and Utah State. I mean, this is a great state to live in terms of basketball. There have been great coaches, wonderful players, and great success. So we're not going to change this thing. It's not going away. It's interesting to watch, and I'm sure there'll be a little bit of heartache, but for the most part, there's a real upside to this for coaches who can quickly change the environment of a program and rebuild. It's not going to take 2 or 3 years like it took us at BYU, where you go through 1, 2, 3, 4. It took us 4 years to get back to the tournament and win a conference championship. You can do this now in a matter of months.
Steve, we appreciate it as always. Thanks for joining us. We will talk to you again next week.
Thanks, fellas. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Steve Cleveland, former BYU basketball coach, join us. Yogi Roth will join us, talk Big Ten football, and Kyle Whittingham of Michigan. That's coming up at 9 o'clock. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
Kyle Whittingham steps down, and Morgan Scalley has been elevated as the next head coach of the University of Utah.
I was a little confused by the steps down and not retired aspect of it, and I don't want to imply that Whit was pushed out, but certainly there was some interesting verbiage immediately after the Athletic was reporting that he would look at other jobs, potentially if they became available to him. So if he wanted to keep coaching, why not just keep coaching at Utah?
Which is really strange.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the whole story.
I think it's as simple as he would listen. I think it's that simple. Honestly, do I expect Whit to take another head coaching job? I really don't.
No, he'll obviously listen, but why? Why isn't he listening to other jobs while employed at the University of Utah?
That was what was strange for me. Why now? Who made this decision? Was it Whit? Was it somebody else? I do think that is the huge question.
Catch Jake and Ben weekdays from 10 to noon on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. There are so many stories, PK. BYU just finished 12-2. Only one loss, only one team beat them, and obviously it was Tech beating them twice. That's a very impressive season, and that got some comments. But everything's about Kyle Whittingham. My gosh, you posted a couple of things, and they have the phrase blown up. It took over the internet. It's probably over the top. It's too much, but it might actually be case in this true. Or it might be true in this case. Case in this true. True in this case. Kyle standing up there in the Michigan shirt. It's real. It's happened. Whittingham is running one of the biggest brands in college football, and he's about to take some more people with him.
Yeah, I think in terms of off the field, it's the biggest story in college football right now. Him going to Michigan is that big of a job, and he's that big of a name in the industry. And it's wild that way to where Michigan was just a few weeks ago. And the more story that broke, it was just awful that what happened, and just not just a coach losing his job, that's bad enough, but then all the other stuff that went around. And I wrote a piece on Friday morning for KSL Sports. I think we have it on KSLSports.com and KSL.com, that Michigan needed a squeaky clean dude here, and they got one. Yeah. Right? Kyle Whittingham, there's no baggage involved. This guy, if you're looking for sort of a Captain America in terms of football coaches available, That's him right now when you think about it, right? And then he can slide in, and there's no messy Lane Kiffin departure and all that stuff, right? Now, we'll see what he does, and he'll take some Utah coaches, and he'll take some BYU coaches. I think there's a chance, certainly Jay Hill, and then maybe even more than one, which then makes it plural. But there's no doubt in my mind he'll take Utah coaches, and those guys got to just be jumping at the opportunity to get back there for sure and work for him there at a premier program. Those chances in college football and in life don't come around very often. Here they are right now. So they got somebody, and that might cause some bad feelings with Utah. But, I mean, you did the same, right? You went and took Jason Beck, and you've done what your fan base might criticize Kyle for doing, you've already done. So basically, shut up there. You don't have a leg to stand on.
It's how the game is played these days. It's just how the game is played. It was just a couple weeks ago that Penn State was going to take Kalani, and there are all sorts of rumors about, well, Morgan's tired of waiting for Kyle, and Morgan will go to Penn State. Never came to that, so it's hard to prove that, but I know you heard it, I heard it, and I am sure this town's so tightly wired, I'm sure a lot of our listeners heard it too. That ultimately didn't come to pass, and now this does, but it's just how the game is played. Head coaches are always going to lose good coaches, and they always have to have an eye out for young up-and-coming coaches or realize, hey, this person got blamed for this over here, but they can really help me. I mean, look at Saleh with the Jets. That was a nightmare, but Niners are like, well, I don't know what happened there, but I know he can coach the defense here, and they brought him back, and he did good work last time and doing pretty good work this time.
Yeah, I think that the Penn State thing actually has a direct correlation, or direct effect may be a better way to say it, because Scally would have been interested. And I think that was part of the reasoning with Utah's administration. Do we want to start over? Because you'd have to get a new defensive coordinator basically 2 years in a row. Because Kyle, to his own acknowledgement, talked about retirement too much. And I had a guy who I think is pretty smart and has a lot of intelligence that people don't realize. He told me a few years back, don't be talking about retirement. Don't put it in the minds of your superiors that you want out. Because then they're going to start looking for your replacement. Right?
Yes, I did say that.
Okay, if you want to acknowledge who said it, I wasn't going to do that. But
it's
stuff
true.
when you tell me stuff that is life advice, you're not just saying it to say it. You've got some meaning behind it, and there's some thought process. And so I stopped doing that. And I'm thinking, I'm going to go as long as I can. When's that going to end? I don't know. But I'm not worried about that now. If they want me, I want them, and away we go. And we'll see where this thing goes. My passion is still there. I still love the job. It's no big deal to come to work after a vacation. I actually look forward to it. This is fun. When the story, and I knew it was going to happen to an extent that if Kyle was interested, Michigan was going to be interested. And I figured the national people from the Michigan perspective were going to break it. But I wake up Friday, I'm just as jacked as if it was 20 years ago. I immediately whip out the computer and start going to writing, put on a piece. Lloyd Cole calls me as I'm writing the piece. What are you doing today? I'm coming on the air with you. Because I knew that's what he was calling me for, right? And I'm ready to go. And that's the new breaking news still gets me excited, right? And so that's where Kyle kind of got himself to his own acknowledgement in a situation where he didn't want to be, because he frequently talked about the possibility of retirement. And then as he approached that age, I still got a lot of juice. I still want to do it. The fact that he's 66 to me doesn't mean anything, because I've been around him enough. We've been around him enough to know that he still has his intense passion. And in fact, and it could be like, this could be, he's not midlife, but could be an old life crisis, not in terms of motivation. He doesn't need to buy a sports car or a new motorcycle. He's got a new toy to play with that's going to get his energy, and that's University of Michigan football. And so Utah's sitting over here thinking, well, man, if we lose Scally, we got to start over from the defensive perspective, and the next year start over from the head coaching perspective. Well, let's try to handle it right now, since the man has talked about, well, this could be, I'm year to year. Now, all of a sudden here, Utah's in this situation, and they say, well, would you think about doing it? And Kyle he immediately saying, okay, I don't want to overstay my welcome. Boom. He did say that, I think it was Jay Drew who was back there yesterday because he was over in Florida covering the football game for the Deseret News. So he went over and did the press conference. How did they treat you? And he said, you treated me fine. And I probably shouldn't have talked about the retirement. So as I said earlier, I'm not going to crack on Utah for the way it was handled because Kyle broached the subject independently of the university. And, he talked about Utah the last couple of years being year to year. Now he's talking about, I can go the 5 full years. This is no problem. So, and what are the Utes supposed to do over here, man? Oh, on our position, he's talking about that, well, he's year to year, and then now he's in Florida. I can go full 5, no problem, man. Let's put my hand in the dirt, ready, blow. I'm going to start recruiting. I'm going to hire a staff, and we're going to kick the crap out of Ohio State. Ready, break, family on 3.
All right, we got to back up. Now, I agree with most of what you said there. But,
good.
multiple things can be true. And he's going to sit at a press conference and say he was treated well. Because he's just not going to play it any other way.
No point in doing that.
Right. But, PK, he's a Whittingham. There is a chip on his shoulder.
Oh, no question.
There's a reason he says he's going 5 because he doesn't think he should have been pushed out. But he realizes I did, the rock slide happened because I kicked a pebble at the top of the mountain and it hit one and it hit one. And next thing you know, there was a big old landslide. I mean, he gets it. But at the same time, everything wasn't peaches and cream all the time, and he can't wait to show people he's still got it. Plus, new challenge. Michigan exists in a different conference with different access to the playoffs. They get treated differently. They've won more college football games, although Ohio State will tell you they don't have the best winning percentage, which is also true. But they won more football games. Kyle's been to 2 Rose Bowls at Utah. That's great. At Michigan, they're like, we won the first one, 49-0. When we went back, we won 49-0. Again, we're Michigan. It's just different there. I mean,
it is.
And making the playoffs would have been a huge accomplishment at Utah. At Michigan, that's the low bar. I mean, they're going to expect you to win once you get there.
Well, those are all facts, DG. I agree with what you said. I have no qualms with what you said right there. Utah, Kyle took them to a ceiling, and he bumped up against the ceiling, right? Utah is an outstanding program, but it's not on that first tier. That first tier is very exclusive, and that's not a knock against Utah whatsoever. What they've done as a football program, what he did, what Urban did, what Ronnie Mack did, all great work, all legendary in their own rights, right? And Kyle leaves as the winningest coach in Utah history. A phenomenal job, build a statue. Maybe this changes a little thing, but certainly he should get in that ring of honor. I think we all agree on that. And so with that being said, now he goes to Michigan, and it is a higher level. You can achieve more, with more pressure too and all that. And, you're not going to get 5 years unless you're knocking on the door of the Final 4 or Final 2 just about every single year. That's the requirement there to be able to do that. And he knows that full well going in. And so, yeah, I get all that. It's just that I'm reluctant to dump on the Utes completely. Now, the Whittingham, I was speaking on that on Friday, the Whittingham revenge and Whittingham spite, that's enough to allow him to coach 10 years, let alone 5.
Tapping into a nuclear reactor.
Right. The whole family is legendary in that way. They are driven. They are a motivated people. And, I've spoken with multi-family members. I have not spoken with Kyle, but I've spoken with multiple family members here in the last 24, 48 hours. And everybody's fired up, man. Away they go. It doesn't diminish what he did at Utah. It's not like he scoffs, oh, screw Utah. It's not where it's at. It's this opportunity presented itself. It was weird. It's the weirdest thing we've seen probably in the 30-plus years that you and I have been working in this market. And it transpired in a way that was beyond a Hollywood script. Scorsese could have never come up with that. And these other famous directors, that's about all I know because he's an Italian guy. There's
that was a good one, though.
Yeah. Who's the ET guy? Spielberg. I guess.
Spielberg.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't have created this in any form of imagination that this would happen and it would come to pass the way it did. Well, here it is, and away they go. And he's going to attack this job as if he is a 30-year-old rookie trying to prove himself. Michigan got themselves a motivated winner, and that's what they have. And I suspect, I don't know that they're going to beat Ohio State. I'm going to hope that they do, but they're going to get the very best. I can argue they're going to get more out of Whittingham than Utah ever got, because the fire that burns within that dude, he's passionate, he's sometimes stubborn, which may sometimes get in the way. They asked him what was his offense. What is he fair? I knew he would say spread. Why does he say spread? Because Fred Whittingham thought the spread was the hardest thing to defend. And so Kyle's just going to repeat what the old man said for years and years.
And he hit him with the running stats. We're going to run the ball. Look at our numbers. Only the service academies. He went right, which is true. I mean, they ran the ball. And how much of that is the offense? And how much of that is, and maybe at Michigan you can have a couple of NFL draft picks in the O-line again next year. I don't know what their O-line looks like, or more specifically what it's going to look like after the transfer portal.
If you put your name in the portal and the University of Michigan calls and you are these positions that we know of, running back, offensive line, any spot on the defense, all three levels, go to Michigan. This dude will, if you have any NFL talent in you, he'll get it out of you. And you'll make money at Michigan, obviously, because they're going to have tons of money, and then you're going to make money in the NFL. Those are facts. Now, if you're quarterback or receiver, okay, well, that's like with BYU when they used to have crappy facilities and they'd have recruits on campus. They wouldn't really show them that. They'd show them the other stuff. I mean, that's a blemish, right? You're going to have to overcome that. But I think, and we'll see what happens with Bryce Young here, because he's a big 5-star dude, and obviously he's looking to put in his 3 years of service and then go on to the NFL. I don't know what's going to happen there if he stays. He's been giving indications he wants to stay, but also I've heard some other stuff that there could be possibilities. And what does Dampier do? Dampier didn't exactly lock himself into Utah, nor should he, man. This is a freaking business for a kid like a Devin Dampier, who's not going to be an NFL quarterback. He might have NFL talent at another position, but the point I'm making is he needs to get as much money as he can right now, because that's real. And so he basically has to put himself out to bid. And loyalty, I don't want to hear about loyalty anymore. Forget it. Loyalty in college sports, it is gone. I don't want to hear about it, because you can complain, Sam Levitt wasn't loyal. All right, well, he wasn't loyal at Michigan State, and now you expect him to be loyal at Arizona State? Well, he already showed he wasn't loyal. So what do you expect? If I go out and I'm dating and I fool around with a woman who's married, and then we get married and then she leaves, am I supposed to say, wait a second, where are your morals? Well, you already did it in the first place. Sam Levitt left Michigan State to come to ASU. Now the ASU people want to be mad that he's going to leave them? No, you took him from someplace else. Shut up. I don't want to hear it. And you may take Dampier. His high school coach is on ASU's staff right now. He's a full-time coach, was his high school coach down there in the Valley. And so what's he going to do? Explore your options, young man. And if Utah is your best option, fine. But if you can make more money and get in a situation where you follow Jason Beck to Michigan, more power to you. That's the world in which we live in. Then it's up to Utah to go poach somebody else. Or if they've got Bird, then Bird just steps in and away you go.
Well, now we're borrowing from tomorrow's show, but it is super interesting. What does Morgan want Utah's offense to look like? What they ran this year was great. How much of that was scheme? How much of that was personnel? How much of that can be replicated? Those are all huge questions, and Morgan's got to answer them right now. And I suppose what he does at offensive coordinator will tell us. I don't think they did anything schematically at Utah that was different than is being done everywhere else. I think it's the way they compiled all the options into seemingly every play call. There was always the threat of the fly sweep. There was always a threat of the running back. There was always the threat of the quarterback pulling the ball. So it was like a new version of the triple option. And there was always the threat of the quarterback going to pull the ball and not run it, but throw it into the area someone just vacated because they're coming up for run support. Now, how do you set it up so you have that every single play, which seemed like what they were doing to a large degree? I mean, maybe not on 3rd and 10, but a high percentage of their snaps they had that. I don't know if the next offensive coordinator will do that. And, I mean, just connecting the dots, you want to hold on to a quarter. If you get a 5-star quarterback and you play as a freshman, you want to hold on to him. He's obviously talented. But I would assume that all the major powers that need a quarterback are ready to tamper. And if he does leave, then as the offensive coordinator, while you figure it out, why not get a guy in who knows the offense for 1 year and can run it? Why not?
Oh, yeah,
if that's Beck's second choice, I don't have any idea. But if it is, it wouldn't surprise me. It would make sense.
Right. I mean, no matter, even if Kyle and Beck had returned, you have the nation's best offensive lineman leaving, and then you have another first-round draft choice leaving, and then you have 3 other seniors leaving. So it was going to look different. Different no matter what.
They had to rebuild it.
Nobody, every single coach returned, and every single player on offense minus the offensive line, it's going to be rebuilt. My guess is they're going to look for the transfer portal too and see what they do. That's the interesting thing, to see how Morgan rebuilds the offense, because even if Jason Beck and Dampier come back, 5 critical components, and Kyle talked about that in his press conference yesterday about winning the game in the trenches, and Utah has made a killing and a feasting off of that has gotten them a victory over Saban in the Sugar Bowl, that has gotten them 2 Rose Bowls, and kicking the crap out of USC every time. That's what's going to be so fun. I can't wait for USC to get on Michigan's schedule and have Kyle beat Pretty Boy Lincoln again.
I did see someone right away at Lincoln was trying to get out of the Big Ten. I saw people went right to that right away.
Well, maybe if Jason Beck goes to Michigan, that Lincoln can take Beck's job and be offensive coordinator at Utah.
I don't see that happening.
Okay,
thanks for the suggestion.
If A-Rod goes to Utah, then he can go be BYU's coordinator and be in the Big 12.
Yeah, what is A-Rod going to do? How's this going to play out? All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Whirls around and down.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone is your exclusive home of the Utah Jazz. And we want to send you to the Delta Center to see the Jazz in action. Listen every Tuesday for the Jazz Ticket Tuesday Sounder at 30 past the hour, every hour, all day long. And if you're caller number 12, you'll be on your way to an upcoming game.
Buy one, you'll get one free.
It's Jazz Ticket Tuesday, every Tuesday throughout the NBA season on your radio home for the Utah Jazz. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Your Rocky Mountain Chevy dealer's strong play of the weekend.
4th and 10 from the BYU 18. Here we go. A knee-high snap. King, pressure from behind, throws as he's being hit, and it is picked off in the end zone. Aaron Johnson with the INT, and the Cougs will seal the deal and win the 2025 Pop-Tarts Bowl.
There's the Chevy Strong play of the game. Know it after 3 o'clock today. JJ and Alex will be here, and they will ask for it, and you will win fabulous prizes. There you go. 12-2, PK, but you don't get to enjoy anything in college football. You just move right along, and you can't complain about it because Ole Miss will tell you to shut up. We're in the playoffs, and we lost our coach. You lose a coordinator. We don't want to hear about it. It's just college football today. You don't really get to soak it up and enjoy it.
Well, I think you can enjoy it, though. I think that you have to expect guys are going to move on when you have success. It's a byproduct of success. And if you don't have success, guys are going to get fired. So you're going to have changes that way. And I'd rather have it that it be the byproduct of success rather than the byproduct of failure. This is the reality. The rosters are going to change. You have to take advantage of the rules that are available and go with it. And there's no point complaining. Now, Kalani has made a big deal about complaining. I thought he should have complained a little bit more about the lack of respect that they got from the playoff committee, but that's not the way he wants to approach it. So be it. You're sitting there at what are they, 23-4 over the last 2 years? These are great times in BYU football, and they need to be acknowledged as great times in BYU football. It's not just the old days that were great. They're great right now. And how do you use that to your advantage? Jay Hill, gone. Okay, fine. Aaron Roderick, I think he probably is gone too. It's a situation with him. He has extreme loyalty to Kalani. but I think in his life he's better suited at Utah for other reasons. So with that in mind, if it comes to pass, so be it. Wish him well. Then you should be able to get premier opportunities. Do they move Fesi Sataki up? The great thing about BYU in the last few years, and we've talked about it, is that their coaching staff, it's not an entry level into being a head coach. It's not an entry level into being a D coordinator. It's guys that have experience. And I believe that there'll be a bunch of candidates out there, especially now because they've loosened up some rules and things that allow people to be employed by the football program, by the athletic program, that weren't the case. I once had a guy tell me that he couldn't work at BYU. The coach wanted to hire him, but the fact that he did not go to church, he was an LDS member by baptism at an early age, but he had long since stopped going. And now he couldn't get a job. And he said he would have been better if his name would be taken off the records of the church. And I said, why don't you do that? He said, because my mother would then be mad at me. And so with that in mind, it looks like that has changed. That has loosened up a little bit. The point being, you can get some other candidates that maybe you couldn't get before. So there's no doubt in my mind they can get qualified people, and you're going to get hungry people too. Because when you take a new job, we've all been there. When you take a new job, what do you want to do? You want to show them, man, that their faith in you is justified and you want to knock it out of the park. So get beyond the fact that you've lost coaches when it comes to that. When it does come to that, I think it will be when, not if. And so move on from that and then go address your needs. What do you need? Do you want a running back out of the transfer portal? You didn't take one this past year, and LJ Martin came through. Now, does he go to the NFL? I think he should if he's an opportunity to get drafted and all that stuff. So go get yourself some reinforcements and away you go. Man, if you turn in another double-digit season, it's time to really talk about Kalani as being, obviously we got Lavelle Edwards, but being shoulder to shoulder with Lavelle Edwards, because what he's doing is just flat out amazing so far.
I like the part about the hungry coaches. Everybody's got something to prove, and these jobs are launching pads. We've talked about that this morning. They've all got people they can point at, like, come here. If you succeed, college football will notice. You will. You will be rewarded, and all of this. I don't know if we can say all of it. Lot of this.
All of it.
All of this is because Penn State came calling for Kalani. Maybe it would have happened anyway. I mean, Morgan wanted the job and had been the coach in, what did you say? The coach in waiting. Waiting. Today. I am waiting.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe it would have triggered it anyway. But the whole thing with Penn State certainly didn't hurt.
No,
but it might have happened anyway.
It might have, but I think it prodded, and has a direct line that you can draw to where we are today. And it was going to happen at some point. If it wasn't going to happen this year, well, we would go through the same song and dance next year. So from Utah's perspective, at least now it's over. You don't have to worry about, well, is Kyle coming back? Blah, blah. You know, is Morgan going to leave because he's tired of waiting? You've settled that, right? And so that's over. And I think in a sense, it's good that it's over because it was hanging over your head there by Kyle's own acknowledgement, by him considering it. And the guy, if you ask him a question, he's going to give you an answer. So I can't really criticize him for talking about it when he was asked about it. And then once he opened the bag a little bit and the cat's out, so to speak, then it became more often asked on and on. I asked, he made fun of me when they kicked the crap out of ASU in the post game and saying, oh, you got nothing to say now, blah, 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 blah. And, I asked my question was later in the press conference, how's it feel to be ASU for the last time, meaning that he would never coach against ASU again? Well, turns out I was right.
Yes. You're the only one who remembers, but yes. Well, he might remember. He might remember you said.
Oh, he remembers. He remembers. He likes to chide me, and we go back and forth and all that stuff. And that's why I want to show up at a Michigan press conference and ask him some off-the-wall question and see how he responds, or a Michigan post-media practice type of thing, such a session. I'm going to do that one way or the other. I can't let this go by. And plus, I think people have natural interest here locally.
100%.
He will be followed. There's never been a coach who left here who will be followed more. And I can argue there's never been a player who's left here. Now, we don't college players when they leave. Back in the day, they would go on to the NFL.
Yeah, I was going to say
wherever.
Steve Young was kind of followed in the NFL. But to say that he would top Urban, because Urban was certainly followed, but it just runs so deep with Kyle. You know, with Urban, it was someone you met, but with Kyle, it feels like someone you know.
40 years of history, if you include his playing days,
yeah,
and then getting into coaching at Utah, and staying here and all that stuff. Yeah, we've never had this. Okay, maybe Steve Young is the example or the exception, but other than that, even at the NBA level, all the players who've left the Jazz, I don't think they'll have this type of interest that Kyle Whittingham will be having. We'll be showing all the TV stations, including Channel 5, which is the only television station I watch now, that will be showing Michigan highlights next season. There's no doubt about that, because we're going to be interested.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna try and watch whole games. It's tough because we got a lot of local teams to watch, but that becomes like one more local team you want to try.
I
and
may
watch.
buy Michigan season tickets.
Now you're talking. Good luck with
Yes.
that. I think there's a waiting list, PK. But there's a strong secondary market. Make it happen.
I've got it in now.
You do. You do. DJ and PK coming up next. Yogi Roth joins us. He was covering the Pac-12. Now he's covering the Big Ten. What does he think of Kyle Whittingham to Michigan? And how would he rank the top dogs in the Big Ten? We'll get to that next. Stay with us.